Imagine this. Someone close to you just shared something devastating. Their voice cracks, tears well up, and they look at you waiting for comfort. You feel that instinct to reach out, to soften your voice, to let them know they are not alone. But there is another person in the room watching the same scene unfold, and inside their head, there is nothing. No reflex to comfort, no warmth rising in their chest, just calculation. They are scanning your face to see what expression works here. They notice the tears, so they mirror concern. They lower their voice because that is what the script demands. From the outside, it looks identical to real empathy, but it is not connection, it is performance. This is cold empathy, and you have been sitting across from it without knowing. Cold empathy is not the absence of understanding. That is where most people get it wrong. A psychopath does not fail to read emotion. In fact, they read it better than most. They can detect micro-expressions faster than you blink. They know when you are uncomfortable before you do. The difference is what happens next. When you see pain, your nervous system responds. Your heartbeat shifts. You feel something. For them, it is just data. They see your sadness the way a locksmith sees a lock. It is not about caring. It is about access. The reveal comes when you realize empathy has two sides. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand what someone else is feeling. Emotional empathy is actually feeling it with them. Most people have both wired together. You see someone cry, and your brain does not just recognize the tears. It echoes the hurt. That echo is what makes you human. Psychopaths have the first part down to a science. They can map your emotional state with surgical precision. But the second part, the part that makes you reach out instinctively, is missing. The wire is cut, so they learn to fake the output without ever experiencing the input. Here is the mechanism. Your brain has something called mirror neurons. When you watch someone smile, those neurons fire as if you were smiling too. When you see pain, you feel a shadow of it. That is why watching someone get hurt in a movie makes you flinch. It is automatic. But in psychopathy, the emotional circuitry that connects observation to feeling is damaged or underdeveloped. The prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control and moral reasoning, shows reduced activity. The amygdala, which processes fear and emotional responses, is smaller and less reactive. So when they see you suffering, their brain registers the information, but it does not trigger the discomfort that would normally make someone want to stop the pain. They are running the social interaction like a video game. They see the quest marker above your head. They know what dialogue option to choose, but they are not immersed in the story. What makes this so dangerous is how good they get at it. Because they are not distracted by their own feelings, they have more bandwidth to study yours. They watch how people respond to sadness, anger, joy. They catalog it. They notice that when someone is scared, their pupils dilate and their voice goes higher. They learn that if someone is seeking validation, a slight nod and a "that must have been hard" will make them feel seen. Over time, they build a database of emotional reactions and deploy them on command. It is method acting without the method. They know the lines. They hit the marks, but there is no director inside telling them what the scene actually means. This is why people describe interactions with psychopaths as feeling off, even when nothing specific was wrong. Your subconscious picks up on tiny inconsistencies. The sympathy showed up 1 second too late. The concern in their eyes did not match the relaxation in their shoulders. Their comfort felt rehearsed. You cannot name it, but something does not sit right. That is your nervous system recognizing that the empathy you are receiving is not coming from the same place yours does. It is like hearing a song where the vocals and the instruments are slightly out of sync. Technically correct, but it does not land. Here is the takeaway most people miss. Psychopaths are not confused about emotions. They are fluent in them. They just speak the language as a second tongue, something learned rather than felt. And because they are not burdened by emotional fatigue, they can maintain the performance longer than you can maintain authenticity. You get tired from caring too much. They never get tired because they were never carrying that weight to begin with. Now imagine this. You are in a relationship with someone who has cold empathy. In the beginning, it feels perfect. They seem to know exactly what you need. They say the right things at the right time. But slowly, you start to notice the cracks. When you are upset, their comfort feels transactional. When you share something vulnerable, they respond correctly, but it lands hollow. You start to feel lonelier with them than you did alone. That is because you are pouring your emotions into a black hole that reflects them back as light, but absorbs none of the heat. The mechanism behind why this works so well comes down to evolutionary wiring. Humans are social animals. We survive by reading each other, by cooperating, by trusting signals of empathy. So when someone displays those signals, our default setting is to believe them. We are not built to assume someone is faking care. That would be paranoia in most cases, but with a psychopath, your paranoia would actually be pattern recognition. The problem is, by the time you notice the pattern, they have already mapped your vulnerabilities and know exactly how to keep you disoriented. Cold empathy also shows up in professional settings. The boss who asks how you are doing, but never actually listens. The coworker who mimics concern when you are overwhelmed, then uses that information to position themselves better. The friend who shows up to your crisis with all the right words, but you walk away feeling like a case study instead of a person. These are not always psychopaths. Sometimes it is just emotional burnout or learned corporate distance. But the effect is the same. You are interacting with someone who has empathy as a tool, not a reflex. Here is the glitch in the matrix. Because psychopaths can read your emotions so accurately, they often make excellent manipulators, salespeople, surgeons, and leaders. Cold empathy is an advantage in high-pressure environments where emotional detachment keeps you functional. A surgeon cannot afford to feel the full weight of a patient's fear during an operation. A crisis negotiator cannot let their own panic contaminate the situation. In those contexts, cognitive empathy without emotional empathy is a feature, not a bug. The problem is when that same skill set gets aimed at people who are not patients or hostages, but partners, children, and friends. So what do you do if you suspect you are dealing with cold empathy? You test for consistency over time. Real empathy is inconsistent because real feelings fluctuate. Someone who genuinely cares will sometimes be clumsy with comfort, will occasionally say the wrong thing, will show frustration or exhaustion. Cold empathy is too smooth. It does not crack under pressure because it was never organic to begin with. If someone's compassion feels like customer service, if their concern never wavers or deepens, if they seem to care exactly the right amount at all times, you are not experiencing connection, you are experiencing performance. The takeaway is brutal but necessary. Not everyone who comforts you is capable of feeling your pain. Some people have turned empathy into a skill they deploy when the situation calls for it, the same way you would deploy a spreadsheet or a polite smile. And the scariest part is not that they are faking it. The scariest part is that they do not even know they are faking it. To them, this is what caring looks like. They have studied the formula so well. They believe they are following the emotion. But formulas are not feelings. And once you learn to spot the difference, you cannot unsee it.